let's get this event started. Thank you to everybody who's turned up, be you a member of Parliament from either house, or a political activist, or a journalist, or a member of civil society who well wishes this cause or sponsors it in one way or another. I know that people meeting all of those descriptions are here assembled, so thank you very much indeed for coming. I was delighted when asked by Natasha Engel to agree to host the launch of the report of the all-party inquiry into electoral conduct, for the fairly obvious reason that it is quintessentially related to the integrity of our political system. And if the Speaker can't be concerned with the integrity of the political system, it is difficult to know with what he or she can legitimately be concerned. So I was delighted to agree to host the launch of the report, and I'm thrilled that such a product has resulted from very studious and concerted collaboration between colleagues over a significant period. In these circumstances, there are always names to be mentioned. It is somewhat, you will understand, of an invidious process, for there is a risk that the failure to identify and duly and fulsomely to acknowledge a particular person will cause that individual undying hostility to them, whereas those who are referenced will simply take it in their stride and regard it as very much their view and probably somewhat understated in the process. So taking my life in my own hands, and you recognising that I don't have a script or a text in front of me, I want, in no particular order, but with some warmth and generosity of spirit on your behalf, to thank first of all John Mann, because John commissioned this report, and many colleagues will know of John's work over a period of many years in the cause of the fight against anti-Semitism, the all-party group intended to counter which has been led with some spirit and dynamism by John over a significant period. Now, I know John Mann well enough to know that when he grips an issue, he doesn't just eat all of the meat on the bone, he tends to consume the bone itself. And I suspect that this will be no exception to that general rule. And by the way, in case you're looking askance and a bit uncertain as to the purport of my remarks, John, I can tell you that's intended to be a compliment. So John Mann deserves to be thanked, and I do so in your company. Natasha, who has been very much in the lead on this, deserves huge plaudits, and she it was who chased me down and said, well, how about having the event in Speaker's House, and would you come along? And I'm, of course, thrilled to do so. And I hope that she won't take it amiss if I say that, although, of course, there's scope, and very properly scope, for all sorts of different personalities to engage with the political process, and we don't want it to be dry or uniform, one characteristic of hers, which I've always noted and thought worthy of commendation, and I suspect my parliamentary colleagues will feel the same, is that Natasha herself, though a very robust campaigner, always tends to play the ball rather than the man or the woman. And that, I think, is hugely to her credit. It's one of the reasons why she's very popular in all parts of the House and was elected as chair of the Backbench Business Committee at the start of this Parliament. She focuses on the issue, she enjoys good relations with people across the piece, and is never personally unkind or discourteous, let alone offensive. And when we're talking about electoral conduct and trying to pit your arguments and claim to office against those of your opponents, that sort of skill set, I think, speaks volumes for the way she goes about politics and the way I think it would be good if more people went about politics. So, Natasha, thank you too. I know I'm right in saying that Stuart Andrew, amongst others, has been a very prominent Conservative involved in this cross-party project, as has Angie Bray. Her efforts have been very much to the fore. I know Angie's not able to be with us today, but she has contributed and Stuart has contributed, and thanks for their contribution, we're always extremely grateful. As we are to Sir Andrew Studdle, who is one of a number of Riddle Democrat members who's been involved in this project, and Andrew, that work's appreciated. Amy Whiteford is here as well, representing the Scottish Nationalists, and has been in support of the project. Seema Malhotra, a relatively newly elected member in Feltham and Heston, a Labour Member of Parliament, has been involved. We've got Mark Durkan back there from the SDLP, who also tends to be a robust campaigner for principle, but doesn't degenerate into ad hominem attacks on his opponents. So, Mark, thank you. and we have got representatives of other houses, of whom the most notable in my line of vision, colleagues, is the noble Lord Alderdice, who is to my right, though probably not. So, John, thank you very much for your presence. If I've missed a colleague, it is either because my eyesight is defective or because you're too short. There you are, I never thought I would say that. Louise Elman I've missed, and on the subject of the fight against anti-Semitism, I certainly shouldn't miss out Louise, whose efforts I hope I've regularly acknowledged as being absolutely pivotal. And there are many other people here present, and as I say, situated in the part of the room that I haven't been able to find you, but I'm sorry. I think that this is a really great example of cross-party work, of people of different political affiliations who are united in the, I was going to say the conviction, the insistence that as far as possible, electoral competition should be conducted fairly honourably, and that must mean, amongst other things, not just with regard to existing electoral law, but in a way that is non-discriminatory. And this is the key point here. We want people, I hope, to campaign and to regard it as their obligation to campaign in a vigorous and determined fashion, but not in a way that scapegoats, not in a way that is ethnically or religiously or sexually or in any other way notably discriminatory. We should eschew that. And I think the feeling that I got from Natasha and colleagues was that yes, there are a number of bodies with some responsibility in relation to electoral conduct, including, obviously, the Electoral Commission itself. There are some duties attendant on the legislation that's been passed for the Cabinet Office, and, of course, the Equality and Human Rights Commission has some locus as well. But I hope that people won't take it amiss if I say I think that the genesis of this inquiry was a feeling that nobody had really gripped this issue, and that the whole question of electoral conduct and discriminatory behaviour in pursuit of votes warranted a cross-party inquiry, preferably a little way away from a general election, in order to allow colleagues, as far as possible, to take off their party hats and to focus on the essence. About the recommendations you'll hear in a moment from Natasha, but I think that that cross-party effort was well worthwhile. And the piquancy of it, from my point of view, apart from the general concern that obviously what I have with political probity and ethics, is that we had ourselves a Speakers' Conference on Parliamentary Representation that concluded in 2010, but the follow-through from which is still very much a matter of current political interest and action. And that Speakers' Conference was set up by Gordon Brown, chaired by my predecessor, and then taken on by me. And all sorts of issues relating to the treatment of ethnic minorities, women and disabled people were to the fore in that, as inevitably to some extent they very much are in this inquiry. And I myself have here the Speakers' Committee on the Electoral Commission. We have some responsibility to scrutinise the Electoral Commission, and we certainly engage regularly with it. And there are several parliamentarians who sit on that committee with me, including Gerald Kaufman, who I think is not here today, and Naomi Long, until very recently, Eleanor Lang, now elected as a Deputy Speaker, Gary Streeter, and others. So all of these issues are my concern, our concern, and concern of all of us who value the health and dignity of the political process. I also thank those who were members of Parliament and are currently members of Parliament, but are here today, included in which is obviously Andrew Dismore, former Member of Parliament for Labour for Hendon and now member of the GLA, and, of course, Parmjit Danda, who was Member of Parliament for Gloucester until the last election. So for whatever reason you're here, thank you for coming. My last vote of thanks on your behalf is to Danny Stone, the clerk and the facilitator, and some people might even say the intellectual inspiration behind this report. I asked him a few moments ago, because we've got quite a large number of clerks in the service of the House, a lot of whom I know, but I don't really know all of them. I asked him if he was a clerk in the service of the House, by which suggestion, unaccountably, he looked duly horrified. Now, the DCCS, the Department of Chamber and Committee Services, which houses the clerks, is very much an intellectual powerhouse in the House of Commons, so there's no disgrace in being thought to be a clerk.